The night he almost said no changed everything. Mark Reynolds stared at the text message glowing on his cracked phone screen while his 5-year-old daughter slept on the couch beside him, her tiny hand still wrapped around his shirt. The message was from the last person he ever expected. I've arranged a blind date for you tomorrow. No excuses. 7 p.m. AC. AC meant one person. Ava Carter. CEO of Carter and Rowe Industries. His boss. The woman who barely knew his name, or so he thought. Mark almost laughed. A blind date? He hadn't been on a date in 4 years. Not since Emily died, not since hospitals and grief and unpaid bills swallowed his world whole. He typed 3 different replies and erased them all. He couldn't afford to lose this job. And technically, the message didn't sound optional. He looked down at Lily, her chest rising softly. What do you think, kiddo? He whispered. I in her sleep, she smiled, and somehow, that felt like permission. Mark hadn't always been this tired. Before the accident, he had been the kind of man who whistled on the way to work. He'd been a mechanical engineer with big ideas and bigger dreams. He and Emily used to talk about building their own startup one day. She believed in him more than he believed in himself. Then a rainy night, a careless truck driver, and one phone call turned him into something else entirely. A widower. A single father. A man drowning quietly. He left his old job because every hallway reminded him of her. He took a lower-paying position at Carter and Rowe just to survive. Ava Carter had recently taken over the company after her father retired, and rumors about her were everywhere. Brilliant. Ruthless. Cold. Mark had seen her only a handful of times in person. Perfect suits. Sharp eyes. A presence that filled every room. He was just another employee in a sea of hundreds. Or so he thought. The next evening, Mark stood in front of the bathroom mirror adjusting the only blazer he owned. It was slightly too tight around the shoulders, but it would do. Lily peeked around the doorway. Daddy, are you going on a princess date? She asked. He chuckled. Something like that. Don't forget to smile, she said seriously. Mommy said you have the best smile. His chest tightened. He knelt and hugged her close. I'll try. After dropping Lily off with Mrs. Hernandez next door, he drove to the restaurant address Ava had texted him. It wasn't just any restaurant, it was the kind of place where the lighting was soft and the prices weren't listed online. He nearly turned around twice in the parking lot. This was a mistake. He didn't belong here, but he walked in anyway. The hostess led him to a private table in the corner. And that's when his heart stopped, because sitting there, in a deep blue dress instead of her usual executive armor, was Ava Carter, his CEO, his boss, his blind date. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Mark was sure he had misread the situation. Surely she was waiting for someone else. Ava, he managed. She looked up, and for the first time, he saw something other than steel in her eyes. Nervousness. Hi, Mark, she said softly. You arranged this? Yes. Why? She hesitated. Because you wouldn't have said yes if I'd asked you directly. He blinked. Asked him directly? I don't understand, he said. She gestured for him to sit. Then let me explain. Ava Carter had grown up in boardrooms. Her father, Richard Carter, had built Carter and Rowe from the ground up. She had spent her childhood watching deals being made over dinner tables and learning that emotions were liabilities. By 28. She had 2 degrees from Harvard and a reputation that intimidated seasoned executives. But success came with isolation. People treated her differently. They laughed too quickly at her jokes. They avoided disagreeing with her. They never saw her, just the title. Except one day, about a year ago, she had walked past the engineering department late at night and she'd seen something unexpected. Mark, asleep at his desk, not from laziness, from exhaustion. Next to him was a child's drawing taped to his computer monitor. It showed a stick-figure man holding hands with a little girl under a bright yellow sun. The words said, "My daddy is my hero." Ava had stood there longer than she should have. The next morning, she asked HR about him. Widower. Single father. No complaints filed. Top performer. He worked overtime but never asked for special treatment. She began noticing small things after that. How he always left exactly at 5 on Fridays, never earlier, never later. How he declined invitations to after-work events. How he smiled politely but rarely fully. There was something steady about him. Something real, and she realized something that startled her. She admired him. Back in the present, Mark stared at her across the table, stunned. "You've been watching me?" he asked carefully. She winced. "That sounds worse than it is." He let out a small laugh despite himself. She continued, "I've spent my whole life surrounded by people who want something from me. But you never tried to impress me. You didn't even seem to care who I was." "I care who signs my paycheck," he said honestly. That made her smile. "Exactly," she said. Dinner arrived, but neither of them touched the food at first. "I know this is inappropriate," she said quietly. "If you're uncomfortable, we can end this right now. No consequences. Your job is safe." He studied her face. For the first time, she didn't look like a CEO, she looked like a woman taking a risk. "I'm not uncomfortable," he said slowly. "I'm just surprised." "So am I," she admitted, and something shifted between them. The first half of the evening was awkward. They talked about safe topics, projects, company growth, Lily's kindergarten art show, but as the night deepened, so did the conversation. She told him about the pressure of living up to her father's legacy, about the nights she stayed at the office because going home to an empty penthouse felt worse, about the loneliness that success never fixed. He told her about Emily, about the hospital room, about learning to braid Lily's hair by watching YouTube tutorials at 2 a.m. He didn't cry, but his voice broke, and Ava reached across the table, hesitated only a second, and placed her hand over his. "I'm sorry," she whispered, and he realized she meant it. But life is never that simple. The next morning, rumors spread like wildfire. Someone had seen them at the restaurant. By noon, whispers filled the office. By the end of the day, HR requested a clarification meeting. Mark felt sick. He never wanted special treatment, never wanted to be seen as the guy who dated the boss. He knocked on Ava's office door that evening. "We need to stop this," he said immediately. Her face fell. "It's already affecting the team," he continued. "People think I'm getting advantages." "You're not," she said firmly. "I know that. But perception matters." Silence stretched between them. "I won't be the reason your leadership is questioned," he added. Her jaw tightened. "And I won't hide like this as something shameful." "It's not shameful," he said. "It's complicated." For the first time, they were on opposite sides. Days passed with careful distance. Professional, polite, cold. Mark buried himself in work. Ava did the same, until one afternoon, everything changed. Lily's school called. She had a high fever. Mark was in the middle of presenting a crucial prototype to the executive board. His phone vibrated again and again. He ignored it at first, then he saw the word emergency. His heart dropped. Without thinking, he stopped mid-sentence. "I'm sorry," he said, grabbing his jacket. "My daughter needs me." He didn't wait for permission. He didn't look at Ava. He just left. The boardroom buzzed with disapproval, but Ava stood. "Meeting adjourned," she said calmly. "Family comes first." And in that moment, she made a choice. That evening, as Mark sat in the hospital holding Lily's tiny hand, a familiar voice spoke behind him. "Is she okay?" He turned. "Ava. No makeup. No heels. Just concern." "You didn't have to come," he said. "Yes, I did. She brought soup and coloring books, and she sat with them for hours." When Lily woke up, groggy but smiling, she looked at Ava. "Are you Daddy's friend?" Ava hesitated. "Yes," she said softly. Lily studied her carefully. Then she reached out her small hand. "You can sit with us." And just like that, the walls between them cracked. The real challenge wasn't rumors. It wasn't HR policies. It was fear. Mark feared losing another person he loved. Ava feared being loved for the wrong reasons. One night, standing outside his modest home after another dinner with Lily, Ava finally said it. "I don't want to be just a chapter in your healing," she said. "I want to be your future." He looked at her, really looked at her. "You're not replacing Emily," he said gently. "No one ever could. But Lily and we're still alive. We deserve joy." "And you?" she asked. He swallowed. "I'm learning that I do too." To avoid conflicts of interest, Ava transferred Mark to a different division under another executive. It meant more work for her, more adjustments for him, but it was transparent, ethical, clean. They chose patience over secrecy, and slowly, the office gossip faded. What remained was something steadier. Real. Months later, On a warm Saturday afternoon, Ava stood in Mark's backyard helping Lily plant sunflowers. Mommy loved flowers, Lily said casually. Ava froze for a second. I know, she replied gently. She must have been amazing. She was, Lily said proudly. But Daddy says hearts can grow bigger, not smaller. Ava's eyes filled with tears, because that's what this had been about all along, not replacing, expanding, healing, choosing love again despite the risk. A year after that blind date, Mark stood in front of a small gathering of friends and family in the same restaurant where it all began. He held Ava's hands. I almost didn't show up, he admitted, smiling at her. She laughed softly. I know. You saw me before I saw myself, he continued. You reminded me that surviving isn't the same as living. He knelt, not with a grand gesture, but with quiet certainty. Ava Carter, will you marry us? She blinked. Marry us? He nodded toward Lily, who stood beside him holding a tiny ring pillow. You're not just choosing me, he said. You're choosing our family. Ava dropped to her knees and hugged them both. Yes, she whispered. 1,000 times yes. The powerful thing about love isn't that it erases the past, it's that it honors it. Mark didn't stop loving Emily. Ava didn't stop being a CEO, but together, they rewrote what strength looked like. It wasn't about titles. Or perfection. Or pretending you're not afraid. It was about showing up, about risking your heart even after it's been broken, about believing that joy is still possible. The night he almost said no changed everything, because sometimes, the most unexpected invitation is the one that leads you home.